Welcome back, folks. Justin, Bridgewater's finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, 2015 NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs, first round predictions. In the previous video, you saw me talk about the Eastern Conference matchups, so obviously we're going to get into the Western Conference now. What we're going to start with is the Pacific Division champion Anaheim Ducks as the top team in the Western Conference and pressing the Rangers for the President's Trophy, taking on the Winnipeg Jets, the number 2 wildcard team, the upstart Winnipeg Jets, who fought their way into the playoffs, and again, couldn't be more happy, like with Ottawa, couldn't be more happy that the Jets are in the playoffs at the dance. The Winnipeg Whiteout is back for playoff hockey. Very excited about it. Anaheim Ducks were 51-31 on the season this year for 109 points, 236 goals scored, but 226 goals scored against. Meanwhile, the Winnipeg Jets were 43-39 for 99 points, 230 goals for, 210 goals against. The season series here was essentially dominated by the Ducks. The Ducks won all 3 head-to-head matchups this year, outscoring Winnipeg 13-8. Your average game between these two teams going to look a little bit something like this. The offenses are very comparable. Anaheim scored 2.88 goals per game this season, while Winnipeg scored an even 2.8. Now, the difference comes in the goals scored against. Winnipeg only giving up 2.56, while Anaheim gives up a full 2.76 goals against. The way this averages out is actually about a 6/100th of a goal advantage for the underdog Winnipeg Jets. In Anaheim, the Ducks were 26-15 this season, a very good home record, while Winnipeg was actually under 500 at 20-21 on the road. The Jets were a decent home team this year with 23 wins to 18 losses, while Anaheim was a quite good road team. I believe they actually ended up having the second best road record in the league this year at 25-16. Biggest X factor I see here for the Ducks, this young goaltending duo that they've got here, Gibson and Frederik Andersen. They were good, not great this season. And this is still a goaltending duo who is relatively inexperienced in the playoffs. Well, just really in NHL hockey to begin with, but especially in the playoffs. So, I mean, they're good goaltenders, don't get me wrong. They're not bad, and there's worse problems a team can have than having 2 good young goaltenders, but it's a question of who do you go with, who's hot, who's going to stay hot, who's going to fizzle out. They're impossible questions to answer until you actually start playing the games. The biggest X factor I see here for Winnipeg, other than the impact of a guy like Dustin Byfuglien, who, if Winnipeg's going to nominate anybody for the Hart Trophy this year, Byfuglien would be it. That's not me saying he should get nominated, but that's just me saying. Ondrej Pavelec goes from the statistically worst starting goaltender in the NHL over the past 3 seasons to Winnipeg's best chance at winning this playoff series, because he is playing white hot right now. If you look at the numbers we just talked about, very little would probably say to you that Winnipeg is going to win this series. Therefore, I'm going to say to you that Winnipeg is going to win this series in 7 games. This is 100% gut, and I have plenty of it, but I just have a feeling about the Jets. Call me a Canadian homer because they're a Canadian franchise. The Winnipeg Jets need success to survive. I think they're going to find it against Anaheim, but it's a gut feeling. I think Anaheim actually wins the first 2 games. Actually, I think this is basically a home game series right up until Game 7. And in Game 7, I think Winnipeg wins, beats Anaheim in Game 7 on Anaheim's home ice. A difficult thing to do, especially for a team that is a sub-500 team on the road. Again, it's gut. It's nothing but gut, but that's what I feel. I'm taking the Winnipeg Jets to upset the Anaheim Ducks in 7 games. Now we'll take a look at the other division champion, the Central Division champion, as I called it, St. Louis Blues, taking on the top wildcard team, the Minnesota Wild, with resurrected Devin Dubnyk. St. Louis on the season, 51-31 for 109 points, 248 goals scored, 201 goals against. Minnesota, to their credit, ended the season 46-36, one of the hottest teams in the second half in the NHL this year. 100 points even, 231 goals scored, and an equal 201 goals against to St. Louis. Season series here was very, very close. Minnesota was 2-1-1 against St. Louis on the season, outscoring them but barely 13-11. Average game between these two teams going to look a little something like this. St. Louis averaged 3.02 goals per game this season, while Minnesota averaged 2.82, two very good offenses. Minnesota only gave up 2.45 goals against per game this season, and so did St. Louis, of course, 2.45. They gave up the exact same number of goals against on the season. What this works out to is about a tenth of a goal advantage for the St. Louis Blues. In St. Louis this season, the Blues were 27-14 on home ice, a very good season for St. Louis in their home barn, while Minnesota had a very good road record of 24-17. In Minnesota, the Wild were only 22-19 on home ice. That is the worst home mark of any team that made the playoffs, and that is noteworthy. They were above 500, but only 22-19, versus St. Louis, who were actually 24-17, so an equal road record to Minnesota. The biggest X factor for St. Louis is kind of what we talked about with Anaheim. They've got two good goaltenders. Again, teams can have worse problems than this. Way worse problems. Just ask Toronto. They have two really good goaltenders on their roster, but who do you go with? Do you go with Jake Allen, who is young but has proved his worth this year? Do you go with Brian Elliott, who has more playoff experience, who is more proven? Which one of those guys do you go with? They went with about a 60-40 split between their goaltenders this year, so both goaltenders got significant playing time, but which one do you end up going with for the playoffs? Biggest X factor I see here from Minnesota has been their biggest X factor for the last 25 games, and that, or no, more than that, way more than that actually, it's Devan Dubnyk. Does Devan Dubnyk fall back down to earth here? Minnesota's been playing like they've got nothing to lose for months, because they've had nothing to lose for months. Nobody expected them to be here after the beginning of the season that they had. So they've been playing playoff hockey for quite some time now. But at what point does Devan Dubnyk fall back down to earth? As I said earlier, Dubnyk's not this good. His track record indicates that, but he's playing like he's out of his mind right now. Second coming of Patrick Waugh. So what is going to happen with Devan Dubnyk? We've been starting to maybe see some chinks in the armor there. I really don't want to sound like a Minnesota Wild hater. To be brutally honest, I'm not. I don't think Minnesota is going to win this series. As a matter of fact, I think St. Louis is going to win this series relatively handily. I'm going to go with St. Louis in 5 games. I like St. Louis. Actually, I like them to split the first 2 games, St. Louis and Minnesota. Split the first 2 games in St. Louis. I think St. Louis beats Minnesota both games in Minnesota. Minnesota not a great home team this year, as we mentioned. And then I think St. Louis wraps it up in Game 5 on home ice. It's a victim of Minnesota not being a great team in their own barn this year. If Minnesota proves me wrong, awesome. That's perfectly fine. I don't mind that at all. If they prove me wrong, great. But I honestly think that St. Louis is a much better team here. Vladimir Tarasenko, one of the greater stories in the NHL this year, the Tarasen show, if you will. I think they're a more complete team, and I think St. Louis gets the job done. Blues in 5 games is my pick. Now let's start taking a look at those 2 versus 3 matchups. We're going to start in the Central Division. The Central Division 2 versus 3 matchup sees the Nashville Predators playing host to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now the Predators led this division for a good while until they got caught by St. Louis, as I said they were going to. Predators had a good season this year. Nashville was 47-35, 104 points, 232 goals scored, 208 goals scored against. The Chicago Blackhawks actually just a little bit better at 48-34, 102 points, so they didn't get as many points out of their wins. 229 goals scored, but only 189 goals against. I think Carey Price and Corey Crawford are actually sharing the William M. Jennings trophy this year, if my math is right. It's either Price has it by himself or it's Price and Crawford. I'm not 100% sure. Season series here was tilted pretty heavily towards Chicago. Chicago won 3 of the 4 games against Nashville this year, outscoring them only a little bit, 12-9. Your average game between these two teams going to look a little something like this. As we noted, Nashville slightly better offensively than Chicago was, by statistics anyway, this season. 2.83 goals scored per game to Chicago's 2.79. The difference here being Chicago only gave up 2.3 goals against per game, while Nashville allowed just over 2.5 at 2.54. What this adds up to is about a tenth of a goal advantage for the underdog Blackhawks. Nashville, very good at home this year, 28-13 in their own barn, versus Chicago, who's actually quite good on the road at 24-17. In Chicago, the Blackhawks were also 24-17 on their home ice. The Predators, however, were under 500 on the road. This is the same thing we talked about when we talked about Tampa Bay. The Predators were only 19-22 away from Nashville this season, and I think that's going to come into play. Biggest X factor here for Nashville is exactly that, 19-22 on the road this year versus not only a very good home team, but a team that is playoff tested, a team that is hardened. It's basically been this core that's led to Chicago's success. Yeah, they don't have Patrick Kane, but clearly, even without Patrick Kane, this is still a team that is dangerous, capable of doing some damage in this playoffs. Biggest X factor for Chicago is for them to continue to be the ultimate closers. Chicago led the league this year and actually did not lose a game in which they were leading after 2 periods. That is insane. The Blackhawks were the ultimate closers this year, the Mariano Riveras of the NHL, not losing a game that they led after 2 periods. Boy, I really don't like the fact that Nashville can't seem to play away from their own barn, and I don't like the way Nashville has been playing to close out this season. I think they're ice cold. I think Chicago's been playing better. I think Chicago overall is a better team. There's the Pekka Rinne factor. He is an elite level goaltender, but at the same time, and this has been a renaissance season for him as well, I like the Blackhawks. I'll take experience over upstart any day of the week. I like Chicago here. I actually like the Blackhawks to win this series in 6 games. I think they split games 1 and 2 in Nashville. I think Chicago is capable of beating Nashville in Nashville. I like Chicago to win both of their home games, games 3 and 4. I think they win both those games, take a 3-1 series lead. Nashville staves off elimination in game 5, but in game 6, in Chicago, the Blackhawks close it out. Huge game in that game from Corey Crawford and Jonathan Toews, the leaders of that team. Chicago in 6 games is my pick. And we're going to close it out here with an all-Canadian matchup, the Pacific Division 2 versus 3 matchup. We're looking at the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames. The Calgary friggin' Flames make the playoffs in 2015, and the LA Kings don't. And that, to me, is amazing. Again, want to reiterate, I'm not a Kings hater. I just want to see something new. And you know what's new? Calgary making the playoffs. Vancouver was 48-34 on the season, a real good season for them, 101 points, 242 goals scored, but 222 goals against, which is not what they envisioned when they brought in Ryan Miller. Flames were 45-37 on the season, so a couple games lower than Vancouver for 97 points, 241 goals scored, 216 goals against. Season series here was as close as it could possibly be. Vancouver was 2-2 against Calgary this year, so Calgary was 2-2 against Vancouver. Vancouver outscored them by the slightest margin, 9-8. So only 17 total goals scored in 4 games. These are low-scoring games. They're tight. Your average game between these two teams actually ends up being the smallest margin of difference between two teams in any of these playoff matchups. Looks a little bit like this. Vancouver averaged 2.95 goals per game, while Calgary averaged 2.94. So their offenses are a wash. The major difference here is that Calgary gave up, again, 6 fewer goals on the season, and the average goals against per game, Calgary 2.63, Vancouver 2.71. What it ends up meaning is that by 4/100ths of a point, Calgary has the advantage. Vancouver was 24-17 at home this year, and they were 24-17 on the road, while Calgary 23-18 at home, 22-19 on the road. Biggest X factor here for Vancouver is going to be their ability to play 5-on-5, which is weird to say about a playoff team. They have elite level special teams, including the penalty kill, which I believe was top 3 on the year. But 5-on-5, they have the lowest goal scored to goal against ratio of any of the playoff teams. It's only 0.96. That means they gave up more goals against this year 5-on-5 than they scored. Biggest X factor here for Calgary is going to be on the defensive side of things. Their season-long goaltending was good, but I have to ask, is there a playoff goaltender on this team? Is Jonas Hiller that guy? I'm not 100% sure, and if he's not, then is one of the guys behind him, do you see a playoff goaltender on this team? I'm not 100% sure that I do, and that's troubling. Of the 5 Canadian teams that made the playoffs this year, it saddens me that we're going to lose 2 of them in the first round. Really sucks, but, you know, that's kind of the nature of the beast. I think this is going to be probably the most exciting series in the Western Conference, aside from maybe Winnipeg and Anaheim, but that's mostly because I'm just feeling an upset in that one. I'm not feeling an upset here. I'm going to take the Canucks, but I think this is going to 7 games. I think this is going to be basically a home series, especially towards the end. I think they probably split the first 4 games. They may go total home dominance for the whole series, but I mean, I could see them splitting their games. They played so tight this season. Like, they were so close. 9-8 the scoring in 4 games. Like, it's insane. I like Vancouver to win Game 5 at home. I like Calgary to win Game 6. I like Vancouver to come back and win it on home ice in Game 7. Vancouver in 7 is my pick. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the first round predictions. We got through that in at least hopefully a tolerable amount of time. Let's go over the predictions here one more time. Going to give you the Western Conference ones that we just did, then remind you, refresh your memory on the Eastern Conference ones. That's going to be the end of the video. In the Western Conference, I believe the Wild Card 2 Winnipeg Jets are going to upset the Anaheim Ducks, winners of the Pacific Division, in 7 games. I think St. Louis, as the winners of the Central Division, beat the top wildcard team, which is the Minnesota Wild. I think St. Louis wins that series in 5 games. Central 2 versus 3. I like Central 3 Chicago to beat Nashville in 6 games. And Pacific 2 versus 3. I like the Pacific number 2 team, the Vancouver Canucks, to beat the Calgary Flames, the Pacific 3, in 7 games. Going back to the Eastern Conference, the Metropolitan Division winners and President's Trophy winning New York Rangers going to prove why they won that trophy, dispatch the Pittsburgh Penguins in 5 games. The Atlantic Division champion Montreal Canadiens, I expect to beat the top wildcard team Ottawa Senators in a 7-game barn burner. I like Montreal in Game 7. The Atlantic 2 versus 3 matchup of Tampa Bay versus Detroit, I like Tampa Bay to win that series also in 7 games. I think that's going to be tighter than some people are expecting. And in the Metropolitan 2 versus 3, I actually like the Metropolitan 3 team, the New York Islanders, to beat the Washington Capitals in 6 games. Those are my first round NHL predictions. We will be back again to predict the second round in a couple weeks' time. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. What I want you guys to do in the comments section below, not only tell me who you think are going to win these playoff rounds, I want to know who you think the Hart Trophy winning player is going to be. Who's going to win the Hart Trophy? Is it going to be Carey Price? Is it going to be Jamie Benn, who won the Art Ross? Is it going to be John Tavares? Is it going to be Sidney Crosby? Who do you think is going to win the Hart Trophy? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Go Habs go. Go Moose go.